What up, everybody? After the first two seasons of Tulsa King ended in cliffhangers, Tulsa King Season 3 ends with Dwight in complete control of Tulsa and literally the king of the city at this point. Dwight now has the casino, control over the weed business in Tulsa, and now after the conclusion of Season 3, he also has the bourbon on lock and a federal liquor license, as well as the governor for the state of Oklahoma, Cal Thresher, in his pocket. But to get to this point, Dwight had to ultimately go to war with the man who had been the king of Tulsa dating back to prior generations, and that is Jeremiah Dunmire, who was called in episode 1 of season 3, the Tyrant of Tulsa. After the balance of power had begun to shift throughout season 3 and Dunmire was looking defeat in the face, he made one final move to try to maintain control, and that was abducting Dwight's sister, Joanne, to try to force Dwight's hand to sign the distillery over to him to save his sister. But with the distillery being in Joanne's name, Dunmire could also try to force Joanne into signing the distillery over to him through fear without Dwight having a say in the conversation. Episode 10 started off soon after episode 9 left off, with Joanne riding in a truck with the guys who snatched her at the end of episode 9 on the way to Jeremiah Dunmire's house. The next morning, Dwight and Margaret were talking about the election for governor that was being held that day, and Margaret mentioned that Thresher was leading by a landslide now, as Dwight mentioned how things shifted in Thresher's favor after the bombing went wrong. Margaret also told Dwight that Thresher asked her to stay on as part of his administration. When Dwight heard this, he didn't like the idea and told her she didn't have to do it. But Margaret told Dwight that it's good to have people on the inside. Then she told Dwight, "May the best man win." This was talking about the election for governor, but I also feel like it could have had double meaning going into season 4, now that Margaret is going to be closer to Thresher, if Dwight could have competition from Cal in regards to Margaret. Keeping in mind that Dwight doesn't want Margaret around Cal because Cal wants to be with Margaret. But before Margaret left, she told Dwight to tell Joanne she said hi. And when Dwight went to call for Joanne is when he discovered that she never came home that night. After this, Dwight had his whole crew searching for Joanne, and Mitch told Dwight that the cameras at the distillery were disabled and Joanne's car was there, but she wasn't. At this point is when Dwight finally got the call from Jeremiah Dunmire, telling him blood or bourbon in regards to Joanne. The same thing that Dwight said to Jeremiah earlier in the season after Cole had stolen the 50-year batch of bourbon from Dwight. And at this point, Dwight told Dunmire that he was going to end him. Then Dwight gave Mitch a list of weapons that they were going to need, and Bigfoot recruited 3 of his cousins to help fight the war. While Dwight was preparing for an attack, Jeremiah was trying to talk Joanne into signing the distillery over to him, letting her know that it would be in everybody's best interest. At this point, Joanne told Dunmire that he can't even see what was right in front of his face, that he lost. And right after she said that, we see the results of this loss, as Cole was on the phone talking about how their distro was getting killed and was trying to talk to Jeremiah to tell him about what was going on. But the guards wouldn't even let Cole into Jeremiah's office to see what he was doing. But later, when Jeremiah and the guards were gone and Joanne was tied up in his office, Cole went in through the side and found Joanne in the office and wanted to help. But he said he couldn't get her past the guards, and he couldn't call the cops either because most of them were in his father's pocket. So Cole made the only move he could make if he wanted to help, reaching out to Spencer to talk to Dwight and his crew to tell them exactly what they were up against and where Jeremiah was keeping Joanne. So once they had the weapons, the soldiers, and the intel, Dwight's plan was to attack at 3 a.m. And one of the soldiers who Dwight brought to battle with him was Russell Lee Washington, who was still in Tulsa after warning Dwight about Ray putting a contract on him in episode 9. And in episode 10, Dwight sent Lee to the car dealership he controls to get a car when Russell Lee Washington picked out an old school Cadillac. So that Caddy will be the car we see Lee driving in Know Your King. When Lee found out about the dilemma, he wanted to help, but Dwight told him he should get on the road and head to New Orleans. But Lee insisted since he was in town, he was going to help. But Dunmire also had a small army guarding his house, so Dwight and his crew had to come correct or they would be walking into a death trap. So they started out by creating a big diversion in front of the house with an explosion using grenades. At this point, they picked off the guards who were outside of the house, one by one, and used tear gas for the guards who were in the house, and for Dunmire, and to get to Joanne. Dunmire ultimately just left Joanne behind to flee for refuge, and Mitch got Joanne out of the house and away from the tear gas, as Dwight went after Dunmire. After catching Dunmire and subduing him, he tied him up and lit him on fire. Payback for how Jeremiah Dunmire had Theo Montague killed in episode 1. And in addition to finally eliminating the competition at the end of the episode when they were celebrating, to make things even sweeter, Musso brought Dwight the national liquor license in exchange for what Dwight got on Dexter Deacon, the watchmaker. But Musso did tell Dwight that when he needs him, he'll call him. So this does let us know that we haven't seen the last of Agent Musso. And also, in regards to Agent Musso, he had Bevilacqua detained several episodes ago, and we still haven't seen or heard anything about that since Bevilacqua's been detained. So the episode concluded with Dwight and his crew celebrating and in complete control of Tulsa. And Russell Lee was about to make his journey back to New Orleans after 40 plus years. But the question is, what is next for season 4 now that Dwight's sitting at the top? One storyline that still isn't resolved, that we still know is going to play a part in season 4, is Quiet Ray and the fact that he has a contract out on Dwight. Either though Dwight and Lee sent a message in episode 9 that it wasn't going to be easy to send hitters to Tulsa and take him out. Like I said, there's also the storyline of what happened to Bevilacqua and will he get released in season 4. And also the fact that Cal Thresher is now the governor and Margaret's going to be joining his staff. And concerning Margaret, again, when Musso came into the casino at the end of the episode, she was staring at him the same way she was a couple episodes ago when she asked Dwight who he was. But with Cal winning governor, Margaret was also supposed to be buying her ranch back from Cal for pennies on the dollar. And now that Jeremiah's dead, what's next for Cole? Will he continue to be in the show in season 4 as Spencer's love interest, or have we seen the last of Cole? Keeping in mind he did tease a few episodes ago that he was going to be moving away from Tulsa. But in regards to the massacre that took place at the Dunmire estate, because the fact that Cole knew what was about to take place, Dwight and them should be good in regards to getting away with it, because Cole will likely help make sure that everything gets cleaned up. But in regards to Spencer, she also has an X-Pill hustle going on with Tyson right now that just about everybody knows about except Dwight. And we have to believe that this is going to be exposed at some point in season 4 as well. Because even Goody is keeping this from Dwight, who Dwight called a capo in episode 10, and didn't have Goody help fight against Dumbmeyer because the fact Dwight said Goody would run things if something happened to him. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.